Ambition and actions. We extend our heartfelt welcome to each of you for the session on addressing plastic packaging waste, enabling a circular economy through EPR and voluntary business action. I warmly welcome our esteemed speakers, and I invite our moderator, Ms. Geetanjali Vats, Chair of India Plastic Pact Advisory Committee and Global Plastic Sustainability Asia and ANZ-led at Unilever, to steer this session. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think since my introductions are already done, I'll call on the panel members. Rakesh, maybe we can start with you for the round of introduction.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Rakesh Mehta from ExxonMobil. We are an energy company, and we are into different integrated energy company, I would say, into gas, into chemicals, petrochemicals.
Meeta?
Thank you, Geetanjali. Hi, I'm Meeta Narsingani. I'm an associate partner at Circulate Capital. We are an investment management fund, and we invest in plastic recycling and waste management companies. We have made 7 investments in India. We are the largest in India in plastic recycling investments. Happy to be here. Shekhar.
Hi, I'm Shekhar Prabhakar, co-founder and CEO of Hasarudala Innovations. We work with waste pickers and provide waste management services, primarily in Bangalore.
Ujjwal?
Hi, I'm Ujjwal Desai. I'm one of the co-founders at Lucro Plasticycle. We are a startup working in circular economy space with plastic waste recycling and making products from recycled plastic.
Hi, this is Jivraj Pillai. I am the head of packaging and the packaging vertical, and also Chief Sustainability Officer for the group.
Hi, thank you, everyone. So before we begin this deliberation, I would like to maybe give a small context about what we will be dwelling into. So if you know that globally more than 400 million tons of plastic waste is produced every year. About 40% comes from packaging, and there is a severe need to reduce the unnecessary and the problematic packaging, right? Now we see that there are enough measures taken in India by way of EPR, which is playing an essential role in order to moderate how the challenge of plastic waste can be attended to. It also encourages development of recycling infrastructure across India. However, while the government policy framework, all stakeholder communities such as brand owners, recyclers, manufacturers, they're all coming in together, we must find out ways how we can get this whole thing more integrated and more cohesive. That's where another important aspect comes in. What apart from regulated frameworks, can voluntary actions play a role? Like voluntary business commitments like India Plastic Pact, which was launched in 2021. The idea behind that was to unite stakeholders across the plastic value chain, whether it is a brand owner, recycler, manufacturer, or a producer, everyone to come on a same place and a dais and have a dialogue in order to progress what there could be mandatory from the framework point of view, but what we all together can do more from a voluntary perspective. So with that thought in mind, I would now call upon for a common question, which I would like my panel members to share their point of view on. So my first question to everyone, given the government of India, strong policies in place on plastic waste management, and there are also discussion on the Global Plastic Treaty underway, what role do you feel voluntary commitments like an India Plastic Pact, for instance, can play in order to help businesses achieve their targets? So, Mr. Pillai, I would like to call you first.
So, Geetanjali, we don't have to do a lot of things voluntarily, because if you see the EPR, EPR has 2 major attributes. One is that it is designed on the 3 R's. We always talk about reduce, reuse, and recycle. So it talks about collection of waste, it talks about recycling the waste, it also talks about using the recycled content into the packaging. It does touch upon biodegradability, it does touch upon reuse of bigger packs. So if we simply follow the EPR guidelines, we don't have to do anything different or anything additional to that. Also, the most important attribute of this EPR, it's basically laying down a roadmap. It does not say do it from tomorrow. It says, okay, recycle 25% of it now, and then 50 and 75 and 100. And you start using recycled content, 5%, 10%. So actually it lays down a roadmap for all the stakeholders to be part of it and comply with the guidelines, and that will ensure that we'll be one of the first countries to really address the plastic waste pollution issues.
Ujjwal, your views?
So similar to what Mr. Pillai said, we are seeing a lot of traction from large brand owners because of the EPR guidelines that are coming into play. And this we see as on voluntary basis at this time, but going ahead from 25-26 when the actual implementation of the mandatory use of recycled material would come into play, we see larger traction coming onto the recyclers end. And we see that a lot of startups are getting benefited because of the laws that the government is making. And a startup like ours is really working in this field.
Thank you, Ujjwal. While the right-hand side of P is all pro EPR, I would like maybe the left hand to talk more about what voluntary action can really do. We understand that a EPR is here to stay and it is more beneficial, but if you can just throw some light on voluntary action as well, that would be great.
Yeah, I think every organization is doing their bit. So if I could talk about ExxonMobil, we've already started selling commercially the certified circular polymers into India. We have recently launched, in fact, in last India, we launched our lubricant pails, which incorporate almost 50% of the post-consumer recycle products. And that has been a great success, which we use into 20-liter pails for our Mobil 1 products. We also are looking at, bringing solutions to our converters, not only in down-gauging the packaging applications so that they use less of polymers, but also bringing some of the high-performance products so that they can make some monolayer solutions for the applications where we are still using multi-layer packaging, which is very difficult to recycle, almost not possible to recycle if you add aluminum foil into it. So we are bringing some of those advanced polymers like Exceed S, Exceed XP, some of the Vistamax polymers to our converters through which they can make some monomaterial products.
Shekhar, if may I call you first to give your views?
Yeah. So I have a little different point of view in terms of, while regulations and targets are a good way to get action going, get some momentum going, get people start looking at the post-consumption waste and what to do with it. I think we have to go beyond that. There is an urgency to the issue. There is a lot more that can be done. For example, Unilever itself is collecting nearly 100% of the plastic that it puts out, even though its target is maybe 30%. So voluntary action is about going beyond what the regulations demand of us as players in the value chain. And the India Plastics Pact, for example, is again a voluntary action where we're trying to see how the value chain, right, from collection to becoming a recyclate can move seamlessly so that the end user of the recyclate, the brands, can actually adopt it faster and seamlessly. So I think there is a lot to be said about how each one of us in the value chain can do more rather than just comply. Compliance is, and again, when you have a mindset of compliance, you're looking at a tick in the box, You're looking at it as a cost that needs to be somehow managed, but we are talking about managing the environment, managing sustainability, managing people and livelihoods. So those, I think, are the areas in which voluntary action is required. It's not compliance that should drive it.
Thank you for your honest opinion. Nita, over to you.
So, Gitanjali, you know, Circulate Capital came into India for investing in 2019. A lot of people sitting in this room, I would like to let you know that in 2019, they only MSMEs, and they were downcycling plastic. It was getting recycled, but in our view, it was getting downcycled. Over the last couple of years, we have seen that companies need, one is capital to do this, and a good regulatory framework. I think with the regulatory framework, we have the best entrepreneurs in India. Some of them we have seen in our investee companies, which we did invest in, like Lucro, Dalmia, Shri Chakra, Deluxe Recycling. They need a lot of support. So if you look at the entire framework, we have a complete jigsaw puzzle now which is coming together with the EPR framework in place, the entrepreneurial activity picking up. You have a lot of brands, in some cases HUL leading the pack with putting in recycled content also and trying to move forward in that. But I think all of these things have started coming together only in the last 2 years. Before that, getting financing for these people was also very difficult. I don't remember anybody able to set up even a plant because banks don't give you funding, financing. So getting recycled material itself was very difficult. And if one company invested in a recycler, the second one just did not want to buy it. If one brand invested, because then you became a contract manufacturer and you didn't know whether the other brand would get the material when the need was. So I think the landscape has changed with a lot of investing happening, private equity money coming in. What now needs to be done, I think this industry needs to get a sector status. That is going to change the whole outlook. It's not just EPR. We need plastic recycling as a sector. And with that, you need priority sector lending coming in. If those two things come in with the current jigsaw puzzle that we are trying to solve, I think we'll be way, way ahead of any other country in Southeast Asia. We are doing well, but there's an opportunity now. It's a golden era for everyone to do much better. That is what my thinking is.
Thanks a lot, Meeta. Thanks a lot, everyone, for giving your honest opinions and sharing how regulated and voluntary action together can make a larger difference for the plastic industry altogether. Now coming on to some specific questions, I would like to start with you, Ujjwal, first. So you have seen the industry evolve. You talked about you as a startup, and what kind of changes that you have seen in the last 3 years effectively, which may be coming from some regulatory framework or from voluntary actions? Maybe just elaborate a few.
So we started our company we set up our first plant in around 2017. When we were selling our products, there was no pull from the market. There was no demand in India. So we actually we found a market outside of India where we used to export most of our products that we made from waste. But today, the scenario is completely changed, where there is a great pull and a demand in India itself. And most large brand owners are actually looking to move or to have their packaging with recycled content. And I have a fear that after 5 years, I hope I can see that there is no waste and everybody is looking for more waste, because the way we are going, I think there will be no recyclable waste available in the next 5 years.
I think that's a very good problem to have, but maybe just to dwell a little more on that. So you talked about like brands asking for more and the non-regulated market also asking for more. So what is it that you see in terms of, are they just sticking to the compliance part, or do you feel they are also willing to do a bit more?
So all the brands in India, I think, are doing much better than anywhere else globally. And this is not just in particular segment of brand like FMCG or auto, but across different brand owners, we are seeing a great pull, and everybody is actually wanting to do voluntarily. Although the compliances would come from 25, but everybody wants to start today. And that is a great thing for a company like ours and startups like ours, where there is demand today in the market, which is the most difficult thing to have when you start a company.
That's a really good thing to have. So coming to you, Mr. Mehta, Ujjwal comes from a company that works primarily on mechanical recycling. Now, if I look at solutions which are available across the globe, there is a big step towards chemical recycling as well. Now, could you give us, or maybe the audience, some information around what ExxonMobil is doing in that space?
Thank you. So I think while mechanical recycling, as we all understand, converts plastic waste into plastic granules, which are not as good as virgin plastic granules. The advanced recycling, what happens is that we can transform plastic waste into building blocks or the molecules like ethylene and propylene, and then these are polymerized into the virgin plastics, and they are used as virgin polymers by the industry. And that's where I think it makes a huge difference in transforming the plastic waste into the virgin products. We have started a new advanced recycling facility in Baytown in December 22, which converts 40,000 tons of plastic waste every year. We have plans over the next 2 years to bring in, transform this plastic waste into virgin products. And we have plans till 26 to convert almost 500,000 tons of plastic waste globally. We are looking at options in US, Canada, Europe, Netherlands, Belgium in particular, and in Asia Pacific in countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And these options are being explored not only to ensure that we get enough waste, but also we have enough infrastructure so that we can run our plants continuously on the plastic waste as well. Apart from this, we also, I think, as I explained earlier, we have started selling the advanced recycled products or certified circular products to the converters in India. And of course, Uflex is one of our first converters. We also have, as I said, some of our high performance products we are bringing in into India, whereby we are looking at reducing the sealing temperature for the packaging solutions. We are looking at bringing the products so that we can get monomaterials into the flexible packaging applications. We have our Bangalore Research and Technology Development Lab, which is working on day in, day out on finding the right solutions for our converters. And at the same time, we are trying to bring in the global solutions to our converters so that they can benefit from all the technology developments that we are doing globally. So we believe that it will be a combination of advanced recycling and mechanical recycling, which we'll need in India and, of course, across the globe.
Just an extension again, what sort of adoption are you seeing in India? Are there any inhibitors?
So I would say, I think this sector is still evolving. We have very progressive EPR regulations which have recently started, and I'm very happy that we are moving in the right direction. But still, we have certain hurdles to accelerate, and we need to accelerate this growth, the use of recycling products. The stakeholders have to ensure that we have reasonable targets, which are in line with the infrastructure that we are developing. So some of the waste management systems and the plastic waste collection systems need to be improved before we implement some of the bold targets that have been set in the EPR. We also have to look at some of the quality standards, which are yet to be, modified in line with recycled products. So these are some of the challenges we have to overcome.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot for your views. And it's really encouraging to see how a play and a mix of technology can really revolutionize the market in India. So both mechanical and chemical are here to stay. And I think India as a market is quite evolved to have both. So now, Meeta, coming over to you, your work involves you to work extensively in the landscape of plastic recycling industries. How do you see changes, that were not there earlier and are now in the last 2 to 3 years?
One is the biggest change that I earlier mentioned was currently the entrepreneurs are taking a lot of interest. I mean, 2019, we had a couple of guys that we met. They were only washing flakes and they were happy doing it. And when we told them, what about B2B? They said, if you can give us the money, we can set it up. So Sri Chakra is funded by us, which is the largest in India. Currently, the only B2B with all approvals in place. And they're supplying to everyone. Dalmia's coming up out there. So I think that entrepreneurial spirit with the right capital is what has changed. The other bit is, Gitanjali, I think thanks to guys like you and Unilever, who is now proactively trying to even put the material in their packaging. You're trying to do much more than even what the regulatory requirements are. So there are so many brands that have now started working, and Ujjwal was talking about, there's a plethora of people who now want to go and do this. So I think that whole mindset change has already happened, that, recycled plastic is not bad. If done properly, it is not as good as virgin, but it can be used for applications that it can be used, and you don't need virgin plastic for. And I think the third bit is the government is now moving slowly in an action plan, more than just saying this is the policy. I think it's now coming to being as a form that we were not seeing earlier. So these couple of things, I think, have moved the whole needle for a fund like us, because initially in 2019, we had 1 or 2 companies that were making noise or trying to raise capital without a proper business model. But now when you look around, even the virgin companies, virgin converters, they want to now set up recycling. I mean, when we used to talk about, go to these big piece converters and talk about, do you want to do recycling? Yeah, it's a mandate, but it's in 2023, 24. But now everybody is so serious that they have taken this industry seriously. So that whole mindset change, entrepreneurial systems coming together, people making money. Now, companies like Lucro, they have started and making money. Sri Chakra coming into its own being, Dalmia moving, Deluxe coming with its own facility on MLP. I think proof of seeing that things can move ahead and you can make money has changed the whole industry outlook.
Yeah. Thanks for your comments. So one is the play of technology, and second, how the entire ecosystem is now ready, or I would say gearing up in that spirit and in the right direction. And I believe this whole cycle is not complete till the material that we design for is not recyclable, right? So coming to you, Mr. Pillai, how UFlex is making changes in its packaging to make it more recyclable?
So recycling is a very loosely used terminology. If you look at the worst material, which is multi-layer plastic with paper and aluminum foil, like aseptic packaging, the worst form of material for recycling. But 100% of this material can be recycled. Okay, you can make compression molded benches and parks and whatnot. So we must talk about the recycling quotient actually. So at what level of recyclability you want to position your company, you know. If you mix and match all the plastics, including nylon, including PVC, everything, just pass it through the extruder, have a larger screen size, you will be able to make some items out of it, you know. Some rigid components which can be manufactured by this material can be consumed for hundreds of years because the rigid plastic packaging industry is growing at the same rate as flexibles, and the size of the rigid packaging industry is much more than the flexible packaging industry. So there will never be a situation where you won't know what to do with all the recycled granules. So this is also recycling. On the other end of it, we talk about the highest quotient where we convert the material into monomers and bring it in true circularity, you know. So it's all about where do you want to position yourself in terms of the recycling quotient, you know. So in India, you get a lot of opportunity to put yourself in any one of these quotients. You know, you can make benches, you can make molded products from MLP, you can use mechanical recycling material, make films also. So there are a lot of companies, like including us, we make films using mechanical recycling. We made a recycled PE and recycled polyester by using mechanical recycling material. And of course, the monomer, the chemical recycling, where you convert the plastics into monomer and repolymerize it and bring it to true circularity. So what I'm trying to say is that we as UFlex, we have the entire band of recycling quotients, but we are climbing up the ladder. We want to be truly circular. So in that attempt, we have made a PE with ExxonMobil recycled granules. We use a monopolymer material because ultimately what will create more yield in chemical recycling, which will help chemical recycling achieve better efficiencies, is a monopolymer material, especially monopolymer PE. So we manufacture something like 350 tons of monopolymer bags, which uses PE and PE. So which is an attempt towards going to the highest quotient of recycling, you know. And of course, recycled PET, recycled PE. Government of India, FSSAI has now allowed use of recycled PET in food contact. There's a discussion going on for allowing use of recycled PE in food contact, you know. So by putting the recycled component in the middle layer and addressing the migration issues, we will soon see a regulation which will allow you to use recycled PE into the food contact applications. So these are some of the attempts which UFlex is making, and it can be replicated across the industry. We need a lot of support from the brand owners. We want them to demand on what level of circularity do you want to achieve. Most companies in food packaging, Nestle, Frito-Lay's, Unilever, they have all made a vision statement that they want to be truly circular by 2030. So in that direction, UFlex is also working, and we wish most companies also work in this direction.
That's quite an interesting insight into the world of recyclability. I quite like the concept of recycling quotient. Like anything can be recycled, but to what extent you do it is the key. So thank you for your views on that. I believe the entire plastic value chain would be unattended to if we don't look at the aspect of informal sector. And I think we have a champion in our panel who has been doing or been at the forefront of it for the past 2 decades. So my question to you, sir, is that can you walk us through your journey a little and tell us the 2 biggest changes you have seen on ground in the recent past?
So, in terms of change, I think a few years ago, most of us did not know what happens to the waste, who actually works with waste, what happens to it, who are the kind of people who are, and more than 90% of the plastic waste, of waste in general, is actually done by the unorganized informal sector. But today there is a greater appreciation, for example, in the value chain. Most brands didn't even know what happens to the waste that their products produce after consumption, right? But today they know, right? So that, I think, is a big change, that those people who have been invisible have become visible in the value chain. And it is, so things like Swachh Bharat, the EPR, all have contributed towards this awareness, towards this appreciation of the work that they actually do. Having said that, there is still a lot to be done, and as demand goes up for recyclates, brands, especially global brands and other companies, start talking about how the chain has to become formal, right? And I submit to all of you that if that is going to be the end thing that everyone wants, you'll actually have disintermediation of a whole section of society. People who have been working at it for years. So we talk about informal to professional to formal. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience. It also takes money, of course, right? And that, and there's a reason why it's in the informal waste sector. There's not enough money in the waste value chain, right? We have all been talking about how, so there is not a fair distribution of value in the value chain, right? Waste, when collected and sorted, starts becoming valuable. That's the first infusion of value into otherwise what is waste. And we do not give the value to it, both monetarily and otherwise, in terms of working conditions, in terms of infrastructure, and so on, right? We are so bothered about the end demand being created, the recycling infrastructure coming up, and we want to disintermediate a lot of other stuff as long as this is met. So organizations such as ourselves and people like me are trying to ensure that there's a just transition. As a society, we are used to, whenever there is major change in the paradigm of how our industry works, we are okay for people to be disintermediated and call it collateral damage in the economic change. Here we need a just transition, and hopefully things like the Global Plastics Treaty, which is going to be a legally binding treaty, we have actually been able to get waste pickers at the table. The Global Plastics Treaty is going to have a principal objective of integrating waste pickers, and when I talk about waste pickers, I'm talking about the definition which includes all informal waste workers in sorting, collection, picking, free roam, everyone, right? So, so like Gitanjali said, I am a little passionate about it, but I think we need to do that as well. And this is where I think voluntary action is required from brand owners, because they're the ones who drive the demand. And they can say how their demand should be met, right? It's just not about the quality of plastic, it's also about how it is done, how the people in the value chain are treated and are compensated for. Thank you.
I think well said again, and the entire premise of this whole value chain lies in the collection aspect, and informal sector being the backbone of that. Unless and until there is firm action, I believe the entire value chain will just dry up. So thank you for your comments on that. One additional point that comes to my mind after hearing you is, in the changes that we all talked about with respect to EPR and all, have you seen the composition of waste getting changed from what it was earlier to what it is now?
So, I think a few things have changed. I wouldn't say the composition of waste has changed in terms of of how people, what kind of packaging or what kind of polymers people are using necessarily, but what is being collected and sorted is changing because there's more awareness. For example, in Bangalore, the dry waste collection centers at the ward level over the last 3 years have seen dry waste going from a few hundred kgs to 2 tons per day, right, at a ward level. And so earlier, only high-value items would be cherry-picked from mixed waste, and only those you would see as recyclable and so on. But today, you have all dry waste. So you have actually, by weight, nearly 60% is non-recyclable multi-layered plastic, interestingly, right? So, so the composition has definitely changed from just being high-value, tradable, recyclable material to non-recyclable and recyclable. At the ground level in terms of what is being collected and sorted, it's changing.
Thank you for that. So, Ujjwal, coming to you now, Lucro's innovation in recycling flexibles is quite well known now. And given the context that Shekhar just talked about, what sort of changes that you are doing in catering to the demands for the growing EPR needs? And secondly, how are you supporting in terms of new R&D in this space?
So I'll just speak about an example with one of the large salt companies in India and how it changed most of the salt packaging. So they moved from a multi-layered pack to a mono-layered recyclable pack. And within a time of 2 years or so, all the large salt players all moved to a mono material pack. Now what this has helped is when pickers or anybody in the value chain who's segregating the waste, they know that there is a value attached to it because now it's no more a multi-layered material, it is a mono-layered polyethylene material which can be recycled either mechanically or through other means, but there is a value attached to it. So that is something that we are trying to work with brands where some of these applications can be moved to mono-material structures in non-food grade as of now, because food grade for flexibles is still not allowed in India. So that is one of the things that we are doing with brands. The other thing is we are heavily focused on moving a lot of secondary packaging material that the brands currently use from all virgin to at least having 30% PCR in them. And this will help us drive more use of recycled content.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pillai, coming to you, we hear that there are changes and the brands are asking more. What sort of changes have you seen post say EPR coming in or waste management rules kicking in? What sort of demands are you seeing and how are you gearing up to cater to that?
So if you see the multi-layer plastic or packaging, flexible packaging consumption is dominated by the big 10s or the big 12s. If you see 70-80% of the material is consumed by these brand owners. Fortunately, before EPR, most companies had their vision statements well defined. They wanted to have fully recyclable structures, either in PP or PE, preferably PE. In UK, everything is PE that they prefer. So this vision statement came much before the EPR regime. So for them, the most brand owners, they had not to do much different, just follow the EPR guidelines. And the demand before EPR through their vision statement was get us use the monopolymer structures more and more. The problem, Gitanjali, is that monopolymer materials do not behave the same way as the multi-layer plastics today. So today the flexible packaging industry is enjoying an equilibrium condition. The machines are set, the products, the productivity, speeds, temperature ranges, everything is set. The moment you try to disturb the equilibrium, your productivity falls. You're talking about 500,000 packing and filling lines in the country. Unilever must be having more than 20,000 filling lines. So to modify them to run the monopolymer structures is a challenge. So although the suppliers like us are aligned to supplying monopolymer materials, but the brand is not yet geared up to use them, also because of the cost. Rakesh, you would agree with me that these polymers are almost 40%, 45% more expensive than the regular polymers. Ultimately, the brand and ultimately the consumer will have to bear the brunt of this cost to the brand owner. So that momentum is yet to pick up. So if you ask me honestly, 5 to 7% of the total packaging material consumed in the pre-EPR period to now has changed, going into monopolymer structures. Country can produce monopolymer structures. We have 4 lines in India now, including us. We can manufacture about 7 to 8,000 tons of laminate, but we are hardly selling 100 tons of laminate in this category. So yes, there is a direction, there is a change required by the brands to go for monopolymer-based structures, but we still see a long distance to cover in this area.
Fair. Mr. Mehta, since you were already being indicated to, so my question next comes to you. What kind of insights that you can maybe share with the audience out here in terms of the research that ExxonMobil is doing in terms of making films and flexibles more recyclable?
Right. So I think as we were discussing earlier, we have a Bangalore Research and Development Center, which is looking at bringing new solutions to our customers, not only through our existing products, but also we are bringing some advanced polymers, which are not being produced by the domestic players. These polymers are like Exceed S, Exceed XP, so the Vistamax polymers, whereby it doesn't not only help you to make monolayer products, but it also helps you to reduce your overall cost. Mr. Pillai talked about cost. It does help you to reduce your overall cost by improving your packaging line speed. As I said, reducing the seal temperature by down gauging. To give you an example, a wheat flour film. You can make a wheat flour film, a 5 kg packaging, with a film of 80 to 100 microns. Whereas if you use some of these high performance polymers, you can make the same 5 kg wheat flour packaging with 65 to 70 micron film. And that's a huge benefit. So that also helps you in reducing your polymer consumption and recycling, of course. We talked about salt packaging, and I think ExxonMobil was one of the pioneers in bringing the monomaterial salt packaging solutions to the converters. We're also looking at finding solutions to the India-specific challenges that our converters are facing, and we'll continue to work on those solutions. We also talk about food packaging. So advanced recycling solutions actually help you to use those products into the food packaging as well. So basically for food packaging, for non-food packaging, for mechanical recycling, for advanced recycling, even some of our products like Vistamax, by using them, you can incorporate more recycled product into your applications. They help you to use more of recycled product into your applications. So some of those developments we are doing research in Bangalore, and we'll be very happy to share with all our customers and converters.
Thank you for your thoughts. Meeta, now coming on to you, you heard and you also talked about how plastic recycling industry is gaining traction. So from the circular capital's end, are you guys looking at new set of infusion in India? And if yes, how are you planning to shape that entire bit?
So this economy is just started picking up. And we think that, it will accelerate and catch momentum now. So there's a McKinsey report which talks about that if you have to meet the demands of the global plastic industry by 2030, you need an investment of $100 billion. We can't do $100 billion for sure. But what we can do is tell you that, our first fund was $113 million, and we raised money from all multinationals, and we deployed that very well. Our second fund, we received $65 million, but that was DFI money. It was IFC, Proparco, EIB, and with this, we did a small pilot kind of thing to say that, is DFI money coming in? And yes, the tap, I think, is now opening up to a lot of these other institutions who have in legacy invested in renewable energy and, those kind of industries and made them really big. But now they're open to look at plastic recycling. So we're hoping that, well, not 100 billion, but a couple of billions we should be able to.
On that positive note, I think we've had a fairly engaging and a positive conversation right from how we can look at including more of the informal sector. And the word that you used, Mr. Shekhar, was really apt, like it's at the just transition. So I think that's something that is a space to watch out for. While I hear from the design perspective, there's a lot of work happening in gaining and making recyclable products. There's a lot of innovation from global resin suppliers like Exxon and our local powerhouse, Mr. Ujjwal, who's talked about how mechanical recycling is playing a big way and adoption is picking up in a big way in India as well. And Meeta, with the thoughts of couple of billions, I think India is set to go. And we should really aim for plastic recycling industry as a sector. I think point well taken on that. With that, I'll close the panel discussion. And if there are any questions from the audience, we'll welcome that.
Actually, it's a very well moderated panel, that means.
Absolutely. So I think with that, we'll give the additional 10 minutes back to the summit and for the rest of the teams to maybe freshen up and soak in the kind of information that this panel brought to you all, because I believe it's heavy information, but it's the most important information which is most relevant for the plastic industry for this year and years to come. So thank you everyone for your time and paying attention. Thank you all.
As this session concludes, we express our appreciation to our esteemed dignitaries for their valuable insights.